Homages, to buy or not to buy? That is the question. In this video, I'm going to be giving you a definitive answer as to whether you should click buy on the homage that you're contemplating purchasing. I'm going to give you the good and the bad. Instead of just completely writing off homages without actually experiencing one, rest assured that I've actually had a few homages in my collection for about 6 months. So I'm going to give you some insight into what that experience is actually like. This video is going to inform you as to the brands and the type of watches I would definitely recommend avoiding at all costs. One of the two big questions in this space is, what are homages and are they fakes? To clear up the second question, no, homages are not fakes. A fake watch is actually a watch that tries to impersonate another watch by using the brand name of another brand that they do not have legal access to, and they put it on their dial. For example, you have a fake watch that tries to pass off as a real Rolex, and they use the word Rolex on the dial when it's not actually produced by Rolex. Stay away from fakes because they're illegal. That's just a complete no-no. Homages are watches that take inspiration from another watch and they try to curate their own spin of it. I think the key word here is inspiration, because there is another subcategory I would consider within this homage world, which is clomages. Although it's not a technical term, within most people's heads, I think you would differentiate the two, because you have homages, which again takes inspiration, and then you have clomages, which essentially copy and paste a design and change the name on the dial. When they buy a clomage, they know they're not buying the original, but when you wear it, the majority of people's intentions are just to convince the people around them they are wearing a more expensive watch than they actually are. In terms of homages, you have brands such as Christopher Ward getting inspired by the AP Royal Oak, make their own spin of it on the Christopher Ward 12, and there is nothing wrong with homages. I would concede that homages are great for the industry, and basically no design is truly original, so I would give a definite thumbs up to the homages. But I think the majority of this video is going to be comprised talking about clomages. And what are clomages exactly? Well, you're looking at brands such as Pagani Design, Steel Dive, Addy's Dive, just the photocopy brands. Unfortunately, I think some of you might write me off as a watch snob, someone who doesn't like Chinese watchmaking and is just adamantly opposed to inexpensive watches, and that couldn't be further from the truth. You know what? I am a staunch supporter of buying a watch that doesn't require you to mortgage your house to afford. I am very, very appreciative of watches that you would be comfortable dropping, damaging, and being financially okay with it. I think that's the best type of watch, not spending beyond your means. And in terms of Chinese watchmaking, any sort of watchmaking is on the same playing field, in my opinion. You have brands such as Seagull. Their 1963. It has so many ties to the Chinese military, and it has that horological aspect to it that these other clomages don't. It's not supposed to be disposable, and it has its own design. It has the historical backing for that, and it's an A+ in my books. It's one of the best mechanical chronographs on the market, in my opinion, for under $500. You should definitely check it out. I'll try to link it in the description below. Let's talk about homages and why they're super popular. The reason that they're super popular is the value proposition, as alluded to before. You can't get an NH35, a ceramic bezel, a sapphire crystal, a stainless steel full non-folded stainless steel bracelet, right? I think I'm losing the word here, but for under $100, right? That's just not doable in the non-clomage world. I can definitely see it from that perspective. To their watch enthusiasts' surprise, most people, they don't care about what watch you're wearing. In fact, they care more about if you brushed your teeth or you did your hair that morning, right? Because I really hope you didn't spend 30 minutes contemplating which watch you should wear and instead spent that time brushing your teeth. They don't care about how unsophisticated your Chinese clomage is. It doesn't make a difference to them. I think that if you wanted to buy clomage, as mentioned before, you can do that. The only concerns there is just the labor laws and human rights, which you should probably look into. But my opinion is just maybe don't go for the straight up clomages. I would definitely recommend looking for a true homage alternative or just an original design, because it doesn't come with the caveats that clomages do. But if you don't care about that, then you should go for a Clomage. And if you have any comments, I will be trying to respond to each and every one of your comments. And if you have had any sort of constructive criticism or you just want to talk watches, I would definitely recommend popping a comment down below. I would recommend sticking around to the end of the video because I'm going to be giving you some recommendations on books and resources that will allow you to delve deeper into this hobby. And I'm also going to be giving you some recommendations about some cheaper alternatives to watches that you may be eyeing. One question that may be percolating through your mind is, why is she holding on to a lavalier mic? It's supposed to be clipped onto your shirt. I realize that the audio quality is much worse when it is clipped onto your shirt. I want to make sure that you have the best audio experience that you can. Value retention. And I know that term may make some watch enthusiasts irk as it is associated with watch flipping, and by no means am I a supporter of watch flipping. But as someone who doesn't have an infinite influx of cash, I think it is a shared concern as to whether your product that you are spending your money on has the ability to be sold and make back the majority of the money that you spent on it. This is where it gets problematic for Clomages, because nobody buys a Pagani design on the secondhand market because what, you're saving $15? Why would you save $15 to get something used if you could just spend the extra $15 and get a new Clomage? I had this epiphany where I realized that if I just saved up the money that I spent on my Clomage collection, I could have bought a nice Citizen Ciosa if I ever needed to sell it, to buy another watch, or just to make back the money. I could have, but now I can't. And if you don't care about value retention, then you might care about the next categories I'm going to talk about. I think sometimes as watch hobbyists, we are inclined to care too much about the specifications of a watch. I'm very guilty of this too, but I think we have to look beyond specifications. Watches are more than the sum of their parts. If you truly wanted something that gave you the best value for money, you would have went for a smartwatch, because let's be honest, this watch hobby is not a logical one. I think the best word for this gap as to why we love traditional watches is horology, and this term gets thrown around way too easily in this watch space, but I think it's really important. For example, I was reading a book about watches and watch brands, and I learned that A. Longa and Zona, I think I butchered that name, but basically it was founded in 1845 and it got bombed by Russian bombs, and it had to be rebuilt, but it almost took a year to get rebuilt. And then what happened was, after that, during World War I, the brand ceased to exist because it got amalgamated into a giant corporation in communist Germany. All these 7 German watchmaking brands got amalgamated into one. And then after all that, in 1990, Walter Longa came back after the war and tried to rebuild the brand with LMH. It's this beautiful story of little facets of this watch history. First of all, learning about watch brands and watch designs that predate your existence is quite astonishing to think about. Learning about all the trials and stories of triumph, just something you don't get with Homages. It's really difficult to verbalize. I think watch YouTubers have caught this bug and delved deep into this hobby, but I think they fail to mention that it is difficult to verbalize. You kind of have to experience this dimension of watch hobby to truly appreciate it. I think the easiest way to do so is by buying a book. Some books that I recommend, I will link them in the description below. They're affiliate links, but I truly love the books. You can just search something up on a blog and get the same information. First of all, you have to realize that the way that blogs make money is keeping you on the blog. It's unlikely they're going to talk about these smaller brands and these less engaging parts of a watch brand's or watch's history. Whereas when you buy a book, you make money by you buying the book, so they can add as much nuance and as much detail as they want because they already made their money. And I think there also is just something novel about flipping through pages and seeing a high resolution photo of a watch and kind of shifting your eyes between the text and the photo. Just having a constant reminder that you can put on your coffee table to pick it up and just check out some watches. There is a book called The Watch, and it's great for learning about brands of watches, the backstory of them. And you also probably should check out Horology. It's another book that just teaches you about the beauty of measuring time, this abstract concept that then turns into something that you can measure on your wrist, which is crazy to think about. And there's also another book I'd recommend, World's Rarest Watches or something. I will have it in the description below, but it just talks about rare watches, and it's another cool little nook in this crazy watch hobby that you should probably check out as well. I just want to ask you if you prefer this more laid-back approach, because I think I'm enjoying it. Also, if you're wondering why I'm not moving as much, it's kind of because it's really cold and I should have put on my jacket, but I don't know what I was thinking. It looked like a nice day today, but you'd be surprised about how cold it is. Lastly, just to summarize, I think that Clomages are a bit antithetical to the watch hobby itself. Now, why do I say this with like such a bold claim? Well, the reason being, I think Clomages stand for everything the watch hobby isn't. Some of the beauties of it is horology, longevity, and design. These are the reasons we go for these watches. We don't want something that is disposable. That's why we don't go for Apple Watches. We want something that has an original design. We don't want to get like another screen on our wrist. We want something that is original. And we also want something with history. And if you've probably caught on, Clomages lack all of these, right? They are meant to be disposable. Think about it. If you damage a Saint Martin, are you really likely to spend money on repairing it? It reflects on the innate value of the watch itself. Obviously, the designs are not original. It's kind of the whole point of a clomage. So again, it takes away from that unique aspect of owning a watch. And lastly, horology. As I mentioned before, it just lacks that beautiful aspect of watchmaking and this watch hobby. I think some homages look great, you know, like the Seagull tanks. They're pretty cool. They have their own spin on stuff, but they have their own history, whereas these clomages entirely lack it. Also, there's not the same sentimentality of owning a clomage. As I mentioned before, you're not going to hand it down to your kid because it's going to be broken by that time. And it's just not as important in your life. It was just a cheap watch, spur of the moment type purchase. It doesn't usually mean too much to the average person. We don't have an infinite amount of money, and you also want to purchase something that is inspired by another watch because you want that look or you want the same feel. So what's the solution? Well, the first solution, I would say, is just delving deeper into the hobby. As I mentioned before, purchasing a book that I'll link in the description below, and just coming to appreciate the watch hobby as a whole. I just want to make sure that you don't end up with any remorse from buying a clomage. And the second thing you could do is purchase an homage or just an alternative. So I have some, again, links in the description below. They are affiliate links to some watch alternatives to some very popular watches. So for instance, you have the Rolex Submariner. You could probably go for an Casio Duro. Let's say you want a Cartier Tank. You can go for a Seagull Tank. And I have some even cheaper alternatives in the description below. You can go for a Timex. If you want some field watches, like a Hamilton Khaki, there's just so many options. I want to thank you very much for watching this video, clicking on it, and getting through to the end. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope that this watch channel patinas over time, just like your favorite watch. I'll see you in the next episode of The Time Ticker.